So, folks, I want to move this discussion on to our guest, Gary Soldano. You know, when we're talking about harnessing local grassroots, local government, sheriffs, county commissions, when necessary and when possible, state legislatures and governors to push back against violations of the Bill of Rights, I think of a guy like Gary Soldano, because Garrett has really gone through and has now experienced firsthand both ends of the tyranny, the COVID fascism, and then now the First Amendment fascism, where literally if you hold certain views the government doesn't like, they'll come after you. Garrett's a practicing chiropractor, but he's more well known recently for starting Michiganders Against Excessive Quarantine as a co-founder of the organization that turned into Stand Up Michigan to fight all of these unconstitutional edicts we saw last year. They had over 400,000 followers. It was pretty much the best grassroots organization I've seen put together to fight this just gross violation of the Constitution. And then a couple days ago, he was paid a visit by 2 FBI agents because someone said Garrett is an extremist. And I was thinking, are we living in Stalinist Russia? What is going on here? So with us today is none other than Garrett Soldano. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, Daniel, thank you so much for having me. It's been an interesting year, that's for sure, for all of us.
It really has been. It's amazing. It's all happened in that year. You go back to January 19th, 2020. I know we had profligacy, we had hedonism, we had out-of-control debt, regulations. I don't think we ever envisioned the notion that a government could force us to wear a mask the rest of our life, could make children kneel under their desks and put on masks for 7 hours, could criminalize free speech and freedom of assembly. But I really got goosebumps when I heard your story on Saturday that you were paid a visit by the FBI and you weren't even in Washington at the rally. Could you give us as much detail as you can? What exactly happened to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I've always been is transparent with our movement. And you can go all the way back to the very beginning. You know, every interview, every live, every post, I've always preached that we've always been a nonviolent, positive movement. I don't know how many more times I have to say it. Obviously, I have to continue to say it because somebody basically turned me into the FBI stating that I was a violent extremist and I was going to do something horrible. And so the FBI called my wife's phone and I was actually studying and my wife comes in and says, Garrett, the FBI is on the phone. I was like, okay, great. What's this going to be about? And he just went on to tell me that somebody reported me and he would like to have a conversation. And I said, hey, I have nothing to hide. You're more than welcome to come over to my house. And he said, are you sure? I said, absolutely. You're more than welcome to come over to my house. He said, you don't mind if we park outside? I said, nope, I've been getting death threats all throughout the summer. There's nothing new for my neighbors. They've seen cops at my house numerous times. And he said, okay. So he came over and I invited him in and we sat down, had a cup of coffee, and it was a good 2-hour-long conversation. And I found out that somebody turned me in for a post that I did. And in this post, I quoted Adolf Hitler. And look, in one thing that I'm a history buff. And I'm always going to learn from the great people like MLK, John Lewis, Abraham Lincoln, and also the bad people in our history, Stalin, Hitler. And we want to make sure that we don't cancel those things, that we talk about them. And basically what I did is I quoted Hitler as only in the struggle between two philosophies can the weapon of brutal force, persistently and ruthlessly applied, lead to a decision for the side it supports. And I went into my video telling everybody out there how horrible Hitler was and how evil of a person he was. However, what the leftists are doing with censorship right now is exactly what Hitler did to gain power in Germany, in Nazi Germany, is to censor, is to control the narrative. And that's exactly what's happening to conservatives who don't support the leftist narrative.
Wait, but Garrett, I'm a little bit confused here because there's something very disturbing about what you just said. I get it that, you know, the agents were polite and look, most of the field agents are decent law enforcement guys, but it's the leadership I think that we're all concerned about and where this is headed. What I don't understand is I get it that you mentioned Hitler even in a way that you're actually trying to warn about fascism, that Facebook or whatever, big tech will censor it. That's par for the course, and we get it. But to have government come in and question you, so that is a new red line. And, my concern is, even if someone quoted Hitler admiringly, and I say this as someone who's Jewish, look, there's a bright red line between free speech and violence, and they're not hard to discern. And someone has a right to admire Hitler. He has a right to be a neo-Nazi, much less be a conservative. You don't have a right to blow things up and to threaten to blow things up. And that's a clear line that the FBI should see. What concerns me is, and I want to know if you have any insight into this, you're a known quantity. And any FBI agent, these guys, comb the internet and they search everything, they should know exactly what you're about and who you are. And the fact that a random person could just say, I think this guy is dangerous, and you get a call, that really concerns me.
Yeah, especially in the past, I've never hinted towards any violence or any destruction of buildings and riots or anything like that. I mean, all the evidence is right there. And so it is a little concerning that, one person calls up, or even if 4 or 5 people, and the post is right there, and all I did is quoted somebody. And then if they would have just went a step farther and actually watched the first 2 minutes of the video, they would have seen that I denounced Hitler and he was evil. But for them to, call and want to talk because of a post, that is a little concerning.
But again, even if you supported Hitler, I'm saying,
that's
and
freedom
again,
of speech,
I say this
right?
Who's Jewish, that is freedom of speech, and we got to be very careful, because I've said this to a lot of people. Yeah, I wish neo-Nazis never existed, but the problem is, to the left, anyone who disagrees with them is a Nazi. So, they start censoring people. And when I say censoring, I don't just mean big tech. When I heard your story, I said, wait a minute, I'm putting it all together. Big tech is obviously censoring. Then you have the FBI casting a very wide net on what happened in D.C. in terms of who they're going after, really borderline criminalizing just having been at the Capitol, which, unlike the rioters that were, trashing Macy's and Target and small businesses that, clearly never have a right to be there, they did have a right to be there if they weren't being violent. A lot of them were let in by the police, and they're going after them. They're putting up signs. They're encouraging people to snitch and to turn people in. It comes at the backdrop of a year of COVID fascism. Then you have the military junta in Washington that's going on right now, and then the purging and vetting of the National Guard. You put this all together, and it's like, wait a minute. I mean, this is very scary. What did you come away with? What was your impression from the FBI? Who put them up to it? Where, I know it was a good conversation, but are you concerned that they're going to start going after people like us that call for resisting tyranny in nonviolent means, as has been done by every opposition? The Democrats did this under Trump violently, I would say. And we always understood that. Are you concerned that we're at the cusp of criminalizing political opposition?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very concerned, because what we have right now is a lot of elected officials that continue to stir the pot, that continue to try to keep us divided. The double standard that's going